Hey everyone, I'm Brad and this is Watch Rate Heart, and it's Friday, which means it's time for the watch list. It's where I discuss the movies I've watched and my feelings about them. And this week we are starting the October celebration by watching witchy movies. And by witchy, it just means the film has witches in it. That's really it. We have 4 films with witches that are beloved or classic films, so let's hop on our broomsticks and whisk our way to the first film.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
And we're starting off with The Wizard of Oz, starring Judy Garland, directed by Victor Fleming. This has a Letterboxd score of 3.9 out of 5, a Rotten Tomatoes score of 98% fresh. This was nominated for 5 Academy Awards. It won 2 for Best Song and Best Score. And, man, this is going to be a rough one. You ever watch a classic or beloved movie and realize you have watched the entire movie through cultural osmosis? Because that's kind of what I felt throughout watching this movie. This is my first time watching The Wizard of Oz. Period. I have never watched it fully. I don't even think I've actually watched bits and pieces of this film. Because anytime I would see it on TV, I'd want to change the channel. It just wasn't my thing. But the more I was watching this film, the more I was like, wait, I know this movie referenced this. Oh, wait a minute. I know The Simpsons referenced this. Oh my God, I remember hearing this here. There's a lot in this movie that throughout my life, I just kept hearing over and over again. Like, The Wizard of Oz is a culturally significant movie. It is a movie that is beloved by many. And it's a movie where when parents had kids, it would be one of those movies that they would watch with their kids because they loved the movie when they were kids. So I kind of get why. So I get why it has this like cultural and popular impact. But I gotta be honest, when I was watching the film, I was thoroughly bored. I was watching this going, oh my God, is something going to happen? Is anything interesting going to happen? And no, they're just going to walk around that circle through the yellow brick road. Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, honestly, nothing in this film interests me, not even the music. And Judy Garland has a wonderful singing voice, of course. The first song she sang was great, but as the film was moving forward, I just was not enjoying any of the music. I wasn't enjoying anything in this movie, to be completely honest with you. And I think one thing this film does, it really reminds me of some of the most mind-numbing children's entertainment. When you have like little kids and they're watching these shows that are really simple and don't have any depth in character or plot at all, that's what The Wizard of Oz reminds me of. It reminds me of Paw Patrol in a sick way, which, man, I'm going to get shit for that one. But yeah, oh boy. I will say this though, the film looks gorgeous. When it goes from the sepia tone-like color of Kansas to the full, vibrant Technicolor of Oz, it is gorgeous to look at. The colors really pop. It really just looks amazing watching the film, and the colors explode onto the screen. So with the visuals, yeah, they're enjoyable. But everything else, man, it was a slog. So with that, brace yourselves. I'm going to give The Wizard of Oz 1 star out of 5. Oh my God, I'm going to get so much shit in the comments for this. But I got to be honest with you, I was so damn bored in this movie. But I'm going to give the excuse. I think that The Wizard of Oz is just one of those films where even if you've not seen the film, you know what happens, you've heard the lines, you've heard the songs, pretty much know it without knowing it. It's a weird concept, and I don't think I'm really describing it very well, but I just felt like I watched it already, even though I haven't watched it. It's really weird. I was bored throughout the film. I only liked one song in the film, and the rest was just like eye-rollingly bad for me. And everything in the film just reminds me of really bad kids' entertainment. I know it's a classic. I know many people love the film. And I know the importance of this film as well. But I gotta be honest, the thing that's most interesting to me about The Wizard of Oz is everything about the making of Wizard of Oz. So this movie did 0 for me. So 1 star out of 5 for The Wizard of Oz. Good Lord, I am gonna get flamed. Now, when it comes to the watch list, I not only want to give my opinion, but the opinions of people on Letterboxd as well. So let's start with a couple of reviews here. I just want to show proof that I'm not the only one who thinks this way about The Wizard of Oz. Let's start off with Matt Lynch. Matt Lynch gives it 2 stars, so he liked it a little bit more than I did. And he just says, ducks. See? we're all afraid. We're all afraid of what people might do when they find out that we don't like The Wizard of Oz. And we also have Juan A. Ramirez. He just says, "Yeah, I don't know. I was bored." Laugh out loud. And you know what, Juan? I was too. I was definitely bored throughout this damn movie. But I want to give a complete representation of Letterboxd, because Letterboxd has it at 3.9, which, if I'm going to be honest, that's a little bit lower than I thought it was going to be. But there are a lot of 5-star reviews, but if you look at the recent reviews, there are a lot of low scores as well. I'm very surprised by that. In the middle is Axel Sliwa. Axel Sliwa gives it 3.5 stars out of 5 with a heart, and Axel says, hasn't aged that well, but is still really good. And I think a lot of people are going to feel that way about this film, really. And let's get into the last review, which is from The Thrill 09. The Thrill 09 gives it 5 stars out of 5 with a heart. And The Thrill says, I seem to be so late to this since today is the first time I've watched The Wizard of Oz. I really should have watched it sooner. Truly timeless in the way it's written. You can really tell how this movie influenced culture as a whole. That I agree with. There are so many lines and so many things in this movie that I'm like, I saw that in that, and I saw that in this too. All the characters are perfectly portrayed. Dorothy is so kind and has some boldness to her, and that gets you just so attached to her. The Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion are also so endearing. Toto too. The story is just so effective and gets you really entertained, in my opinion. I absolutely love it. That's for sure. And The Thrill saw this recently, and The Thrill loves this movie. So I'm not saying that if you watch this movie now, you may hate it. So really, there are people who have watched this for the first time, like me, and loved it. I really feel like the reason why I was bored by this movie and annoyed by it is because a lot of the things that were in this movie I have seen in other films, other TV shows, other properties. It just felt annoying to watch at a certain point. On top of that, I was bored with the characters, and the story was not all that interesting. And I didn't like the music either all that much. So I just plain old did not like The Wizard of Oz. And if Letterboxd decides to delete my profile, we all know why that is.
Is it true you were her friend?
Yes. I mean, I did know her. That is, our paths did cross.
And we are going back to Oz with last year's big musical, Wicked, starring Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, directed by Jon M. It has a Letterboxd score of 3.8 out of 5, a Rotten Tomatoes score of 88% fresh. It was nominated for 10 Oscars, won 2, including Best Production Design and Best Costume Design. Let me start this review by telling you what I kept hearing about when Wicked was brought up on social media and within my friend group. And the two things were about the way the film looks and the last song of the movie, which was Defying Gravity. So let's start with the looks first. A lot of the things I kept seeing online, and it's not the majority, but there was a good amount of people that I saw that were saying this, is that Wicked looks ugly. And I can kind of understand that to a point, but what I will counter with that is that this film looks a lot like what I think The Wizard of Oz would look like if it were made today. Now, I will say this, though. I'm in the really weird position of watching The Wizard of Oz first and then watching Wicked. So if I didn't have the look of that film fresh in my mind, I might feel differently. But I did actually end up liking the look of the film itself. I liked how everything looked very grand and very, well, gaudy in a way. I actually did like the way the film looked. But it really feels like that if The Wizard of Oz was made today, I think this was what it would look like. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are really the highlights of this film, both in singing and acting. I think both are very charming. Erivo is a little more subdued in the film until I think the very end. But to me, the big highlight and the best performance of the film is Ariana Grande as Glinda. I think she is hilarious in some spots. She kind of plays like a ditzy airhead who is a social climber in one of the worst ways possible. And I really just like her performance comedically. The one song popular in the middle of the film, I think, is a really good example of how good she is both singing and acting. Because comedically, she nails it throughout that scene. But also, when it comes to the singing, she does a very good job on that as well. I think Cynthia Erivo is good in the film, but I don't think she's as good as Ariana Grande is. But then again, her character is supposed to be more subdued, much more shy, much more willing to emote. So I guess that kind of makes sense in that. As for criticisms, I think the film is very thin when it comes to character development and plot, which is really funny since this is a 2 hour and 45-minute film. The film is really a high school drama in a lot of ways, and as such, it doesn't go too deep into things, but it goes for as much as it can when it comes to character development and plot line. Alright, so let me get to the second thing that I kept hearing when it came to my friend group and social media. So the first thing I kept hearing is, this film doesn't look great, which I disagree to a certain extent, but I kind of understand where they're coming from. The other thing I kept hearing is, Defying Gravity is amazing. It is one of the best things they've heard in a musical. It is an amazing experience when you see it for the first time. It will blow your mind. Oh my god, it's so good. And I gotta be honest, I agree. It's one of those few times when I'm watching a film where the hairs in my neck are standing up going, oh, what's this? And Cynthia Erivo nails the end of this song. It is amazing how she does in this. The song itself is fantastic. And what a capper for the end of this film. Even though I think the film has some flaws to it, the way it ends is just whoa. It's like, holy shit. I think that's the thing I said at the end, was like, holy shit. That was amazing. I said that out loud after that song. But I think the one problem I'm going to have when it comes to giving a score to Wicked is the whole part one problem. And that is, I'm only getting half the story, apparently. Criticisms that I have for the film when it comes to the plot development and the character development could be rectified in part two. Maybe not. It could. It kind of seems unfair to criticize it for that, but then again, I have to be honest with what I saw when it came to the characters and the plot. It didn't do so well for me. But this is why I hate when films break up into two when it's not necessary. The play itself is 2 hours and 45 minutes long. This movie is 2 hours and 45 minutes long, and yet there's a part two. And the fact that it's 2.5 hours and I still feel like I don't know much about these characters other than their basic traits is really telling to what part two might be, and I'm very curious how that turns out. Alright, so I did not like Wizard of Oz, but I did like Wicked. Wicked gets a 3.5 out of 5 from me. I think what I feel the most is that the two actresses who are the main leads really carry this film to a higher quality than I think that the plot and the story and the characters really give it. I think the singing and acting is great by both actors, so much so that they carry the material upwards from where they are as well. The visuals are good, and man, Defying Gravity is really good. But I really liked Ariana Grande the most in this film. I think comedically, she is hilarious in some spots, but also does a really good job in the music. But plot and character development is a big negative in this, and I'm curious to see what part two does. Although if I'm being honest with you, I don't think it's going to do much. I think this is what they're expecting out of this. So 3.5 out of 5 for me for Wicked. Alright, let's get to the Letterboxd reviews. This first one is from Greg's 1999. Greg's gives it 3 stars out of 5, and he says, very pretty film, great sets, and oh so colorful. Ariana Grande was by far my favorite part. She did wonderful. I agree with that. I couldn't stand how they spoke, adding on ridiculous things to the words. Jeff Goldblum could grant my wish any day. Yeah, you know, in terms of dialogue and how they did that, I wasn't a fan either. Did it bother me that much? Not really. But I can understand why that might annoy some people when hearing that. Let's get into the next review. This is a long one. This is from Stephen Clark. He just gives it a heart. And he says, well, I finally talked myself into sitting through a 2.5-hour musical, and I have to say, I'm surprisingly glad. The elaborate and epic spectacle of a film had me thinking, feeling, and genuinely invested. I think a lot of the credit has to go to the original source material here. I have to agree with that, actually. Because as it went on, I was really engaged with the themes and the weight the opening scene will have when everything is said and done. Ariana Grande is brilliant with her physical performance throughout, but particularly in the opening act. She completely embodies her character. Cynthia Erivo is also very good, even in a subdued role somewhat. Whenever she's allowed to sing, she kills it. Yes, absolutely agree on both ends. Second half loses itself a little, but in some needless romance plots and high school film trappings, but I was engaged enough to get through those scenes. I agree with that as well, too. That's where the film slowed down, and it offered no depth to any of the characters at all. They were just the same as they were before. Overall, I think the film is about as good as it could really be, though I'd like to think they would be more inspired with their lighting and cinematography in the sequel, because it was lackluster at times and felt at odds with the spectacle of the sets and the music. I think towards the end I would agree with that with the cinematography. There are certain parts of the movie where it just seemed unnecessarily drab. I think that was kind of what they were going for in those scenes, but I see where he's coming from. Let's get into the third review. This third review is from Irving. Irving gives it 3 stars out of 5 with a heart, and he says, I didn't quite find my groove with Wicked until Galinda and Elphaba hopped on the train to Emerald City. Okay, yes, that is some of the best parts of the movie. I agree with that. The third act really outshone the beginning. I absolutely agree. Breathing new life into the story for me. It's not well versed in the musical's lore, but it feels like it could have used a dash more of Oz's enchanting background rather than just a school drama aspect. I haven't seen the play, so I'm going to refer to him on that, but I did not like the high school stuff either. Some pieces of the tale and its link to The Wizard of Oz haven't fully clicked into place yet, but I trust that everything will weave together beautifully in part 2. I don't know about that, to be completely honest there, Irving. Cynthia Erivo's performance was nothing short of breathtaking. Her battle cry at the climax of Defying Gravity is etched into my mind as one of the most powerful cinematic moments I've ever witnessed. Yes. Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad someone said this who thought the movie was just good, because that last bit was just boom. It's like, whoa, okay. So I'm not the only one. All right. And this last review is from Alan. Alan gives it 3 stars out of 5 with a heart, and Alan says, enjoyable and fun, but also reminding me of how virtually every major Hollywood release now uses CGI for just about everything. Movies like these would be 1,000 times better if they just tried to use practical effects, in my opinion. CGI just sucks the magic right out of it. You know, in some cases I do agree with that. To a certain extent, I agree with Alan here with this movie as well. There is a lot of CGI that just feels a little unnecessary, but then again, I don't know where they could put practical sets and effects into the film to make it better than it already is. This is supposed to be like a magical place, but again, I do have to agree with them. I think they use CGI way too much, not only nowadays, but a little too much in this movie. I can't say I was surprised I liked this film. I think after watching The Wizard of Oz and hating it, then watching this and liking this, I was maybe a little bit surprised. I thought it'd be a little more cool on Wicked than I really was. But it was an enjoyable movie. I liked it. I loved Ariana Grande in this film. And the final song, Defying Gravity, whew, was amazing.
Come here, Wally. Am I not an attractive female?
What's that got to do with your being here?
Am I?
Yes, you're very pretty.
Take my hand again.
Oh, now come. I know you've had a terrible experience.
And now a pleasant one.
Well, I'm sitting here in this graveyard with this really attractive woman wearing all black, and while she's tempting me into the dark side, I'm going to talk about I Married a Witch, starring Frederick March and Veronica Lake, directed by Rene Clair. It has a Letterboxd score of 3.6 out of 5, a Rotten Tomatoes score of 95% fresh, and it was nominated for 1 Oscar, and that was for Best Music. Wow, really? Best Music? Huh, okay. I Married a Witch is a pretty funny and goofy comedy. It's brief, but I think it's also delightfully goofy. I will say that it does take a little while for me for the comedy to get rolling. Some of the comedy in the film doesn't really work in, like, I would say the first 15-20 minutes. And then the wedding sequence happens in the film, and all the laughs just start to come out really fast. That particular sequence has a bunch of great laughs. I think the 2 main stars, Veronica Lake and Frederick March, work very well together. I liked their back and forth. I think as a straight man, Frederick March is really good in this film. But to me, Veronica Lake is the movie. I think she handles sexiness and silliness incredibly well. I think she's funny in this, but I also think she's very charming. Now, maybe someone will list a few in the comments, but I don't remember an actress who can really mix sexiness and silliness so damn well. Lake did not feel very forced with the comedy in this film, and I was very surprised by that, and I thought she was really good in it. Now, I do have an issue with the film. Again, it does take a little while for the laughs to start coming, but when they do, they really come. But the subplot involving the witch's father, I think, could have been a lot better. In fact, I think it would be better not to have it. I was really thinking this was going to be more of a film where Veronica Lake's character wears Frederick March's character down to the point where he just kind of gives up and is like, oh, I love you, I guess. I don't know. Oh, my God. And I thought that's where it was kind of going. It didn't go that way, and that's fine. But the added subplot involving the witch's father, I just thought did not really work all that well. To me, this film would have been a lot better if it was just straight comedy all the way. It was just an absolute goof fest. But they had a little bit of drama involving the father and everything, and I'm like, that wasn't really necessary. Overall, I do like I Married a Witch. I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 5. I think it's a fun movie. I think it's funny in a lot of spots. I think the wedding sequence itself is hilarious. It is a lot of fun. And I do like Frederick March and Veronica Lake in the film, but of course I think Veronica Lake is the best part of this film. Very funny, very sexy, and just nails that character really well. I think if they just kept it all comedy and not dealt with the witch's father and the drama aspects of the film, I think it would have been a lot better. But it's a minor issue in the film, which that is overall very fun. So overall, 3 stars out of 5 for me for I Married a Witch. All right, let's get into the Letterboxd reviews. This is Sin. Sin gives it 3.5 stars out of 5. And Sin says, a legitimately laugh-out-loud romantic comedy. Very kooky, but in a cute way. Yeah, very cute movie. I have to agree with that. I would have loved to have seen this premise turned into a TV show, as it could have been a darker, more clever version of Bewitched before Bewitched even was thought of. I don't know if that would have worked as a TV show, to be absolutely honest. I mean, they would really have to draw things out to a great degree on that. You know what? Maybe that could have worked, but I don't really see it. Honestly, even though the film is about witches and stuff like that, it's not that dark. It really isn't all that dark at all. So, agree to disagree. But would I be against it? Not really. This next review is from Tylot Lantern. Tylot Lantern gives it 3 stars out of 5, and Tylot says, almost 50% of this film was just smoke effects. No, not 50. Well, wait a minute. Yeah. Actually, I think he's got a point. We have the tree. We have the floating smoke. Yeah, he's actually right. I was going to say, nah, Tylot Lantern's wrong, but I think he's right on this one. If not, it's very, very close to it. But, good one on you, Tylot. And this last review is from Nora. Nora gives it 4 stars out of 5 with a heart, and Nora says, this is the kind of voter fraud they didn't talk about. Also, anytime she was on screen, Veronica Lake was the only thing I could focus on. I agree with that, absolutely. So either she's a witch for real, or she's the most magnetic person to ever live. You know what's funny about this review? There were 2 types of things I kept seeing pop up on all the reviews on Letterboxd, and that is, man, Veronica Lake is gorgeous, and so this is how Donald Trump won. So Melania Trump is a witch. I'm like, I never really thought about that. But yeah, but again, overall, I enjoyed the film. I thought it was delightful. And I think this is on the Criterion Collection, so I might go ahead and pick that up on another sale. But this was just fun. I think it was enjoyable, it was light, and it's a good time. So if you just want a goofy-ass comedy for a good time for Halloween, I would think I Married a Witch would be a good shot for you.
Well, I'm gonna be the very best witch that I can be, Mom. And I know having a good heart is important.
Just follow your heart and keep smiling.
Finally, I'm trying to get this broom to work, but while I do that, we'll talk about Kiki's Delivery Service, written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki. It says Letterboxd score of 4.1 out of 5. It has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 98% fresh, and Oscars, yeah, of course it didn't get nominated or win anything. I don't believe this really came to the States until the late 90s, so that probably is why. Honestly, the way I can describe Kiki's Delivery Service is it's charming, and it's cute. For a Miyazaki film, it's actually kind of quaint in a weird way. It's a very simple movie. I'm not saying that as a derogatory, but it really is a film that doesn't really have anything involving complexity, which is what I'm kind of used to with Miyazaki's films. Even with its most fantastical elements, there's a complexity and theme that Miyazaki's films have, and Kiki just doesn't have this. But it's not like it's a bad thing, because a lot of what makes Kiki work is all the charming characters and the place that the film is set in. Everything just has this like warm, cozy, charming quality to it that I personally did enjoy watching. Did it grab me like, let's say, Spirited Away or Howl's Moving Castle or any of them? No, not really. It's one of those films where if I'm in a mood to watch something just cozy, this would probably be one of those things I'd pick up and watch. I think the one issue that I have with this film is that the overall message seems to be a little too on the nose, and that's really not what I was expecting. There's something about Miyazaki's films that, even though they're not complex in the way they drive their narrative, the emotions behind them are complex. Miyazaki does a great job of taking a grand scope, but making it feel personal in a way that you can still identify with, even though you're not doing these fantastic things. And Kiki, the only thing that's really fantastic about Kiki is Kiki herself, And even then, it's kind of looked on as not that big of a deal. And that kind of goes with its coziness and quaintness as well. So that's really not either a good or a bad thing on that end. So overall, I'm going to give Kiki's Delivery Service 3 stars out of 5. I enjoyed the film. It's cute. It's cozy. It just feels like a warm hug when you're watching it. I think overall the film is very charming. But I kind of was a little disappointed how they deal with the themes of the film, and they just kind of put everything out on Front Street and say, this is what this is about. Well, they don't exactly do it that way, but it's not as thoughtful as something like Spirited Away, or like Howl's Moving Castle, or any of those other films. Or a film I watched recently that Miyazaki wrote, which was Whisper of the Heart. But even though I have that criticism, I did enjoy Kiki's Delivery Service for what it was. So, 3 stars out of 5 for me for Kiki's Delivery Service. All right, let's get into the Letterboxd reviews. This first one is from Robert. Robert gives it 3 stars out of 5. And Robert has a very concise list of what he feels about this film. And he says, a movie that dives into the important things in life. The value of a dollar, how critical your first job is, self-confidence, independence, self-doubt, talking cats, and learning what dirigible means. I kind of knew what dirigible meant when the film said it, but I was kind of surprised they used that word too. So that's pretty funny from Robert there. Let's get into this next review. This next review is from Machine. Machine gives it 4 stars out of 5 with a heart, and he says, Kiki's Delivery Service is a warm and charming film that portrays growing up in the most gentle and magical way. Studio Ghibli once again enchants with animation full of detail, light, and everyday life. It's a story about finding your own path, about loneliness, but also about the small joys that give life meaning. There are no big dramas or fast-paced action, yet the film draws you in with its calm rhythm and wonderful atmosphere. You know, Machine has a point there. I mean, the film is really, it's all about everyday life. And that's, I think, what makes it so quaint and warm and quiet in its way. I do like the little details that Miyazaki does with, let's say, like, with animation, like the wind blowing and stuff like that, but he does that in every film. I guess what I'm saying is I agree with Machine to a certain extent, but it didn't really draw me in like his other films did. And I don't know if that's because of the grandness of the scope of Miyazaki's films or not, but I'll leave it at that point. This next review is from Marco. Marco gives it 4.5 stars out of 5 with a heart. He really liked this, and he says, if this was done today, Kiki would be a target for Amazon's drone delivery service, which is why we should protect her at all costs. And this last one is from Savrenel Singay Crattery. Oh my god, dude, I am so sorry if I butchered your name. Savrenel gives it 4.5 out of 5 stars with a heart, and he says, wholesome, cute, fun, emotional, the full package, really. Yeah, I could see if you really love this film, that's exactly what it is. And I don't disagree with the people who love this film. I understand why they would enjoy this film immensely. It just didn't grab me like Miyazaki's other films. I also admit that's not the point of Kiki's Delivery Service. But I do enjoy it, and it's definitely something, when I feel like it, I will definitely watch again. So, but I don't disagree with the Letterboxd reviews are saying, the ones that love it specifically, but it just didn't grab me like the other films that Miyazaki has done. And that is it for this episode of Watch, Rate, Heart. But before I go, let me ask you a question. What type of movies do you like to watch in October? I know a lot of people like to watch horror films and scary films to get ready for Halloween, which, yeah, I'm not a real fan of, to be absolutely honest. With me, I do like watching films that remind me of fall, but I kind of do want to get into not into the Halloween spirit, because again, I hate Halloween, but I'll watch films that are like Halloween films, but are not scary, or not gory, or not disgusting. So I'll watch like some Tim Burton films, or I'll watch something like Coraline, or The Nightmare Before Christmas. If you liked any of the reviewers I've highlighted in this episode, you can check out the video description for a link to their Letterboxd profile, and be sure to give them a follow and tell them that Brad from Watch Rate Heart sent you. You can follow me at Letterboxd and X at Watch Rate Heart. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and share with your friends. I'm Brad from Watch Rate Heart. Thank you for watching, and remember, we all watch and rate movies, but you give them the heart that makes them live forever.